I just want to start off by saying thank you to everybody on the line and taking the time to join with us today. Welcome to our friends here in Central and the East. Good afternoon to our friends in the West Coast. Good morning. My name is 17Dec2020. I'm the Cloud Sales Director with Infolob Solutions, and I want to welcome you to our first webinar, a part of a four-part series where we'll be highlighting the benefits of Oracle Cloud and how your business could utilize that. Over the course of this webinar, we'll be talking about planning upcoming data center upgrades or expansions, how your Oracle stack would look like when you re-platform during a data center expansion, moving enterprise applications that you currently have on-premise into the cloud, the likes of EBS or PeopleSoft or even a Lucian Banner. And then nearing the end, we'll be discussing the ROI that you can see from a cloud transition, along with a sample 5-year TCO to provide some extra context of everything that's discussed today. On the line with me, I have our cloud practice leader, Brent Seaman, and our cloud enterprise architect, Javid Rahaman. They'll be presenting for you today. And without further ado, I would like to hand this over to Brent.
Thank you very much, Samir. And again, I welcome everyone. I'm glad you were able to join us, and also glad that so many of you participated in the survey. Got a few different points to share from the survey today. One of which is on the page here that shows almost 60% of you responded that your application's installed on hardware that's over 5 years old. So you'll see some correlating data throughout related to that. But just a little background on me. I'm based in the Midwest, supporting our client base across the U.S. and mainly North America. We've got a few clients outside, but mainly focus on North America. Prior to Infolob, I had a run at Mythics for about 8 years and oversaw the cloud practice there. For about 10 years, I had founded and ramped up my practice around middleware and security, content, portal type applications, and then EDS for about 10 years before that. So I'm glad to be here. Javid, if you wouldn't mind saying a couple words, introducing yourself, and then I'll plow into things here.
Yeah, so my name is Javid Rahaman, and I have a 20 years of IT experience, especially around EBS, an Accelerator, early release of Accelerator X2. So I'm based out of Central. I'm based out of Dallas, so Central time zone, and I work closely with I'm part of Brent Seaman team, and I work closely with every sales and enterprise teams internally and externally.
Thanks, Javid. And again, appreciate you all joining us, and we'll take a pause towards the middle for questions, but if you want to put them in the Q&A, Samir will keep tabs on those, and if something makes sense, we need to kind of jump into that in the middle. We'll take a pause in the middle and then also at the end for discussion. And we'll have a couple, I guess 3 polling questions along the way also. So it'll be a little bit interactive. So appreciate you participating in all of that. So kind of the parts that we're planning to cover in this one is kind of a project approach, ways to do migration and what we've learned along the way that might be beneficial to you. What organizations are saying they need of cloud today, which is a little bit different than 3 or 4 years ago. And then Java's going to cover the majority of the budget planning section. So that's what we had on the agenda. It closely matches what you saw in the abstract. So we'll just go ahead and jump into some of the survey data you provided us as an intro. One of the questions that we asked was just what's influencing your decision to move to the cloud. And what we expected, is one of the bigger items here. 25% of the responses said that the data center hardware refresh is due, which kind of mimics what was on the first survey question about how long you've been on your current hardware. And that's what we've seen over the last few years is if you get to that point, you need to do a hardware refresh. one of the things that folks are doing is looking at moving to the cloud as, one of the primary options. So second behind that is performance. With what we're seeing that folks want from the cloud today. And then to do an application upgrade. Those are the top three things we always hear. There's some additional comments around wanting to move to a new cloud service provider or a different service model within the cloud service provider, or just your data center contract is expiring and you need to move the infrastructure and applications out. The next question that we're reporting on right now is around other environments. So besides prod, what other environments are you looking to move? So about 30% of the folks said that yes, we're looking to move other environments also. A small handful say no, and the rest are only focused on prod at this time, not yet gotten to focus on non-prod environments. So we'll go ahead and jump into kind of Approch. I'm sure many of you have seen kind of the Gartner 5R since it's been out 10 years now. I think it's a good way to visualize, what options you have when you're looking at upgrading or moving applications. Industry area kind of modified this into a 6 approaches diagram, which we've got here. And the main things that we're going to look at is the rehosting and replatforming side, repurchasing or replacing side, and the refactoring or re-architecting side. So this rolls into what our roadmap planning approach looks like. So typically folks are looking either to go move your app to SaaS, if it's an ERP or HCM app or maybe EPM app, you may go to SaaS directly, but what we've seen more of, especially in the last year, is folks wanting to move to an infrastructure as a service model first, because you've got a lot of custom business objects and business logic and quite a bit of data that needs to be sorted out, and just the project schedules get elongated if you try to bite off too much. So the other reason folks would be moving to an infrastructure model to start is if you've got a large number of apps that you want to move over at the same time, so you can get it all into the same data center architecture. So we would typically go down kind of this path. If you do a replatform first, usually folks are looking at, hey, we can do database cloud service along with that. We may take advantage of some of the edge services at the same time, but typically it's kind of low change at that point in time. And then kind of as a second phase, move to expanded PaaS services and the like. So this is our kind of roadmap planning model. It helps at least to get a general view to start out with, and to get a comfort level of what our customers are looking for. And from there, we can dive into what our migration model looks like. And it's not uncommon from other folks. It's just kind of a structured model, kind of full life cycle from inception through run and maintain. One of the things that we do initially around assessment is to make sure that we pick an approach that works with the client. So, it essentially turns out to be a joint project, because, even if you want help from an integrator, there's a deal of resource needs within the organization that are required. And that's from the standpoint of, the business side, but also, IT, security, the database administrator groups, sysadmins, network admins, and change management. So the reason I bring this up now is that this model fits any size of migration. What we found is if we've got a large number of applications that need to move, whether it's 5 or 10 or 50 or a couple hundred, we can use the same model and group things in waves to go through the process. So I've got a couple examples here of how that fits in. So if we've got a few different applications here that we want to move over, and this example is EBS and some custom Apex application and some other custom web apps, we could kind of move all that in one wave, and it may take 3 months or it may take 9 months depending on the variables within the project. But we can move things from, in this scenario, we've got a couple different data centers, one for prod and one for non-prod, and we can mimic that on the Oracle cloud infrastructure side. So this example is moving into OCI, a couple different regions, and moving into database cloud service. So kind of a broader example would be kind of breaking things down into 3 waves. The first wave would be moving the ERP application, some custom Apex apps, Oracle Identity Manager and Enterprise Manager, moving all those over at one time, and then moving the other applications in other waves. This might map out to a 7-month or 9-month project. It's possible you could do wave 2 and 3 at the same time, but typically, one of the constraints we run into is customer resources. And there may be a constraint there where we need to do them in sequence instead of in parallel. So, a couple examples of kind of doing things in waves. Essentially, we would, cycle through the design to build migration steps in our migration model. Obviously, there would be all the aspects around that from a project perspective, including communication planning and change management. On enterprise apps like EBS, typically we would go through 2 or 3 testing cycles, and it depends on the customer's preference, but usually that's based on kind of their schedule. So like, I know there's higher ed on the line, so what we've run into on moving like Banner and PeopleSoft over, typically the go lives are going to happen around downtimes at the university. So like at the end of the calendar year, like we're going into right now, there's some downtime that making a cutover could happen, or at fall or spring break, or during the summer months. For commercial organizations running finance applications, what we've seen is that typically those testing cycles need to happen after a month-end close cycle. So we need to schedule those in between holidays and, in between the close cycles. So, every business is different. So you got to take that into account when you're planning things out. Some of the things that folks have talked to us about related to, what's causing me to pause before going to the cloud. Oracle did a customer webcast a couple months ago, and one of their questions was just that: what are your challenges in moving to the cloud? And the biggest one that came out there was around, we need to better understand how our apps will fit into you as the cloud service provider, your infrastructure. So one of the things we thought we'd do is just share a little bit more about that on this call, since we've heard that other places, But the migration cost considerations, I think Javid will cover some of that in the second half, and then just the second to last one here about concerns about governance and security and performance. I'll cover a little bit of that right now also. So if we just look at what are the things that you can do to move your apps over from an on-prem data center or a hosting provider over to a cloud service provider, in this case, Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, there's we just look at it from the different tiers in the stack. So starting at the network, moving up through the server and OS layer through layer. And there's some tools available through Oracle to help with that for the data migration side, from some of the data migration tools that you can use live, or you can set them up to do those things offline. There's even a tool called the data transfer appliance that allows you to move things off in bulk and move things on an appliance over to the Oracle data center, and then sync up or true up prior to go live. We've also, Infolob's developed a couple toolkits that we use. One is for moving, middleware migration and deployment sets over, and one is around EBS upgrades. So being able to assess any kind of customizations, Kimleys, and so forth, and be able to kind of catalog those and roll those into the project plan. So these are the kind of tools that we would use. The block migration or tool migration items listed on here, we've done things with third-party tools like Rackware and Cloudware and so forth. Essentially, they do block level migrations of the OS, of the VMs over from one point to the other. So what we've heard from cloud service providers and from industry analysts and from customers is these are the top things that are on your mind. If you're moving over to the cloud, you want performance. That is in one of your survey responses. Security is one of the things that is probably more prevalent a couple of years ago when people were less informed or less knowledgeable about cloud. Now folks are saying that's the reason they want to go to cloud. There was a study done in the last year by Deloitte around what are the top drivers for going to cloud, and the number one reason that execs are saying they want to go to cloud, 56% of the folks, customers said they want to go to cloud to protect their data and for all the other security controls around the infrastructure. They also say that modernizing the data also helps them protect their data, and that as an asset for their organization. The flexibility side is becoming an increasing need for organizations, in that to be able to scale up at will. If you've got high watermark demand times through the year or through the month, it gives you the ability to scale up kind of much easier than doing that on-prem. The other side of flexibility is it gives you the ability to take advantage of new services that become available, as they get rolled out by the cloud service providers. And then from a modernization standpoint, the other thing that this Deloitte study was that IT leaders are saying data modernizations are a reason to shift to the cloud, and essentially that gives them access to, again, expandability and data security and the other functions on how to kind of monetize their data as an asset. So we roll into, there's a couple things I just wanted to spend time on. Number one, security, and number two, performance. So this lab validation was done by IDC about a month and a half ago. They looked at Oracle's cloud and kind of did tests on 6 different areas. The first one was around, what happens if I finish with my cloud resources, compute environment, for instance. Is that is that suspect, for someone else getting access to the data that was on that. They went through and tested out how the resources are recycled and scrubbed at the firmware level. Essentially to combat against kernel attacks and bytecode interpreter type issues. So the whole Spectre meltdown scenario from about a year or so ago, they were testing for that. The second part, they were testing for network issues. How is the network isolated from other hosts and processing? And essentially, Oracle put together their network to do any network controls off box. So there's off box protection. So what IDC did was test out the smart NIC functions to be able to understand if there is protection at the tenant boundary level. I won't spend time on all these, but the last three, feature 4, 5, and 6, essentially address tools that Oracle's built into Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. And these are things, from a flexibility standpoint that have appeared in the tool, with no cost, over the last year. So one of the tools is called Data Safe. It allows you to baseline assessment and remediate issues and establish new baselines for any kind of tenancy issues around data. And part of the reason there is, the way Oracle architected the system is no one at Oracle can see customer data, but they had to come up with a way to baseline that data to ensure the integrity of the data. So Data Safe was put in place to be able to do that. The next feature, number 5, was around a tool they came up with called Cloud Guard. And essentially, it allows you to set up a detector and responder mechanism, which is based on some of the management cloud tools that Oracle came out with a couple of years ago. But those are built into OCI now with a rule recipe scenario, essentially a policy model that you can manage and tweak. And then the last one's around security zones, which was also built into OCI within the last year. So it takes advantage of an area called compartments and allows you to set up compartment policies and essentially do event modifications based on any kind of violations within the rules that you set up. So the nice thing about cloud in this case is it gives you the ability to take advantage of new features that show up as they're available. We'll move on to kind of performance. If you look at some of your survey responses and what folks are saying through other industry analysts, performance is one reason that folks are moving to the cloud, but it's also a reason folks are hesitant to move to the cloud because they don't know, how things will perform. Well, there's enough case studies out there now that most folks don't have to do benchmarking on their own. But on the Oracle side, if you look at the very bottom, the source, let's prove it. I would encourage you to go take a look at that page, because there's quite a few resources out there about, what the performance metrics are around storage, around database, around compute, and around networking, throughput in and out of the tenancy. I would definitely encourage you to take a look at that. And there's enough data out there that shows, what the performance is between AWS, between Oracle, Google Cloud Platform, or Azure. I thought this would be a good starting point to move forward with. The other thing around flexibility is, customers are interested in, how things continue to grow for them. I actually should have updated this. Oracle's up to 29 cloud regions now with the release of the Chile region in the last week or two, I guess. But overall, they're targeting 36 regions by July, and that includes some government regions in the US and UK. And in the US, there's government regions are broken down into three parts. One would be GovCloud, one would be DoD Cloud, and one would be for the security agencies. So again, there's a source at the bottom that's updated regularly. And what we've seen is folks are looking for, options for that fit their organization structure, so that if you want to do DR, you're going to want it in a different geographic area than where you're located. You probably want your prod environment somewhere close to where you are. So, giving growth and flexibility is important for folks. And essentially, being able to have access to the platform services as they come out as well is important, because you may want the ability to do integration to your data or through applications, and as those things are developed, you have ready access to them without having to stand up new infrastructure or plan for procurement over a 6-month period. So a couple other survey questions that you responded to. One is around edge services. So the reason I ask this is not everyone that we start projects with is aware of the edge services that are available. I think people are becoming more aware of web application firewall and some of the traffic management services. But you can tell by your responses that traffic management is something that you're the most in tune with for failover and for load balancer services. So when we started doing these migrations 2 or 3 years ago, most folks were looking at putting in a software load balancer like F5, and a lot of folks were looking at either F5 or Palo Alto for firewalls. But the cloud service providers, Google and Amazon and Oracle, all have these services available now, which may not be 100% full service, but they get the 80% that most folks want. One of our customers doing a PeopleSoft migration last year or year and a half ago was going to put in a Palo Alto firewall appliance, a software firewall appliance. And this was a time when the WAF service was available in OCI. We're like, well, do you want to take a look at it? They're like, yeah, we'll look at it. We're just like, it doesn't have all the same features, but you should look because it might have what you need. And essentially they're like, oh, absolutely, this is what we need. And it's like a quarter of the cost of what we were going to spend, and easy to deploy, and updates happen within the same boundary of their virtual cloud network. The question that we ask typically when we're getting started on projects is there's different ways to go when you're moving things to the cloud. Some customers will move things as is to the cloud and do an upgrade later. Some folks will do an upgrade and then move to the cloud, and some folks will do it all at the same time. So your responses were, hey, you're looking, half of the responses were we're looking to upgrade the application and database at the same time. And that's probably about what we see on average. So I'm flying through that a little bit. So fast forward, and we'll for sure make another stop towards the end where we can do any discussion Q&A. The one thing that we did want to do is get some additional feedback from folks. I've got some industry analyst data in here around, IT spending. So Samir, if you could go ahead and bring up that poll question, we want to get some interactive feedback about what you're seeing.
Okay. Everyone, you should have your poll question in front of you right now.
We'll give it like 15 or 20 seconds and then we'll move on. All right, so half the folks on the line say spending is up from last year. Some 30% say spending's down and 20% say about even. So Samir, if you can just capture that, that might be good info to have at a later time. So I've got some data here from an analyst that I share data with, and they, from a partner perspective, they also collect data from their client base. So, they've been tracking this for quite a few years, around spend on different aspects of infrastructure and different aspects of cloud. And the XaaS would be a subset of cloud, but would represent infrastructure as a service and platform as a service, and some other services that might be ancillary, like if customers designate things like database as a service or other things, those would fall into that category as well. Anyway, if you look at 2020, they're saying estimated through the end of the year that spending is up overall 7.5%, even with the COVID things going on. It said that had an impact. It's not up as much as they thought it would be, but you can also see the trend where things are starting to move towards cloud spending more than on-prem spending. So it's finally at the point where folks are predicting that the cloud spend is going to surpass the on-prem spend shortly. So if we look at kind of the summary view of what they had to say, cloud, collaboration, security, and SaaS are all still things that the folks are looking at. And some of those have been accelerated this year because of the need to support work at home. Another study, the last one was by Cleveland Research. This is by IDC. And they've got a nice blog article out there that was written a couple months ago around kind of the digital infrastructure and how folks are transitioning to digital infrastructure, cloud and on-prem. They've got a kind of a nice model at the bottom around, where are you controlling your network, at the edge or on-prem? How are you doing services? Is it on-prem shared services or is it in the cloud? So I would encourage you to read that one also. But one of the things I wanted to point out here, they're saying by next year, 80% of the organizations out there are going to put a mechanism in place to move to the cloud. So they're ramping up. What they're saying is organizations, across the board are ramping up to move to the cloud. And one of the terms they have in the graph here is ubiquitous deployment. Essentially, what they're talking about is, we can put things wherever we want, on-prem or in the cloud, and our processes will handle that. And we don't have to do things significantly different to manage our infrastructure and our applications and the platform that we're on. So the move to digital infrastructure is alive and increasing, in the hearts of organizations around the world. So I'm going to kind of migrate or transition over to the budget planning part of the presentation, and Javid's going to carry us through, for the next 10 or 15 minutes on this, and then we'll make time at the end for discussion.
Thank you, Brent. Thanks, Amir. Welcome aboard, guys. I think this slide tells you the data center costs. I think most of the current customers, those who are currently still using either on-prem or hosted data centers, they incur cost in the 6 buckets: the leasing cost, capex, opex, labor, security, and they definitely have an upgrades and integration cost every year because the data center needs some sort of maintenance every ongoing year as a recurring activity. So I think I'm gonna transition this cost and give some dollar figures based on our recent project references. Next slide. Okay, so this is a tabular format of where currently customers coming from the data center and they transition to cloud and how those dynamics and the figure looks like. So if you see the major baskets or licenses will fall from 600K to 400K. So most of the customers, they opt for a subscription based license in the cloud because Oracle gives multiple benefits in the conversion. I mean, when you have been given option to convert your licenses from your perpetual to subscription, so that is a big saving for every customer, and they should, I guess everyone should adopt that and take up this is a freebie from Oracle. So and the second one is security. So there is no compromise in the security. So I just mapped, and that's what we see the customer, that you keep spending the same security cost in cloud, but cloud gives an enhance. So you use that cost to have an innovative cloud security feature. So I kept that 400K on the same in the cloud, and this is what the pattern I see. If you see the infrastructure cost from 600K to 200K, so I think it's a major revamp. So there is no capex in the cloud. So it's only opex. In your data center, you always do a planning of 3 to 5 years, but in cloud, you do only a 1 year, maximum 2 years ahead capacity planning. So that's where you see a huge cost difference. So 600K to 200K. Then annual maintenance contracts. So these contracts in the cloud are very subject to scale up or scale down. So you won't be having multiple contracts. You hardly have only couple of them bundled together, many to some of them. So you will definitely save a half of your annual maintenance contracts in the cloud, because many of them will move to the many automations what the cloud or the partner enabled automation. So there is a good cost saving over there as well. And data center OpEx, so you see a major component that one. I think that everyone should avail that cost proposition saving, 1.6 million to 600K. So 1.2 savings, direct saving, because there is no capex. So it's only OpEx and planned, and I mean you can have a budget planning also in the cloud. So you can say that, okay, this month to month the ramp up costs. What Oracle say that every month you know what it's gonna cost. If it is been additional, you can definitely go back and plan that it doesn't go up from certain budgetary figures. Next. Okay, so this is a kind of interesting chart. I just converted the figures into a bar chart. So you see the challenges. So these are the current challenges what we see from past 10 years and from past 5 years. Whoever is moving to cloud. So your legacy hardware like a Spark, IBM AX, Solaris, so and high cost of technical function support to your current EBS, which you have a hard time to migrate or upgrade because there is no additional capacity available on-prem, and lack of flexibility and agility in support because there is no infrastructure. So you do not have a flexibility to have an EBS upgrade parallelly going. So these are the challenges being encountered with our experience being a partner from last 10 years, and high cost of upcoming refresh. But every refresh is going to cost 50% of the original capex. So maybe I think storage refresh, computer refresh. So you cannot do anything because that Intel hardware loses the life after every 5 years. So that hardware just goes to the trash. So unless someone buys from off the market. I just transitioned the cost into 6 buckets. The major cost is data center operation, then your application maintenance contract, licenses, security, and infra upgrade. So on the right one are the constraints compared to the challenges. So multi-year locked contracts, because you cannot exit the contracts just like that, because you move to cloud, you have to use your exit criteria, or pay out the remaining amount, or negotiate the terms. Non-portable licenses, because your current licenses could be a perpetual licenses, so those licenses cannot be converted to subscription-based licenses as long as you stay on-prem. But Oracle or any cloud vendor gives an option to move and have a multiple licensing option in the cloud. A non-scalable compute, so you have no option to scale your compute unless you upgrade or add a storage on-prem. But in cloud gives an option to you always have an on-demand compute available. So unlimited innovation. So you can't spin up multiple things like a Kubernetes and on-prem, because your hypervisor or your underlying infrastructure do not have a capacity. So these are the constraints. So I'm gonna convert into a different things here. So here you see 50% direct saving because the cloud gives an agility. So your capex will be converted into opex. So you have a 15%, 15, 10, and 15. So I just move those into a basket, and you have a 50% saving. So this 50% saving can go into your innovation projects like a Kubernetes, security. So you have an option to use this 50% budget to upgrade underlying EBS. So in this example, I took the EBS large size customer. So you can use the savings of 50% back to upgrade to modernize your EBS environment, which is agile and elastic in cloud. So without spending a additional amount of additional dollar, you have a cloud in place cloud, and you can modernize with the existing saving to the current EBS, and all applications will follow as long as your old TP is upgraded. And this you will incur 3 to 6 months a parallel journey to the cloud. So that could be that could be the certain cost. So that will come out of your 50% savings. So, but I guess you will still have you still have a major amount being light into your bucket to try more and more things in the cloud. Yeah, so this investment model is I just compared with Accelerators on-prem versus Accelerators cloud. I mean, the left one is Accelerators on cloud, and on the right one is Accelerators on-prem. So Accelerators cloud service is 3 times cheaper than on-prem, because Oracle, if you convert your perpetual licenses to subscription licenses, you get all the enterprise edition features free and Accelerators features, which you might be paying a subset of licenses currently, or you may not be having those licenses currently. So that concluding that, I mean, adding that, managing, operating, upgrading, patching. So those are all cumulative in the clouds. You don't need to do anything. Oracle will be taking care back, and so customer is responsible only to upgrade the database and partly to the grid. So these occurs only once in a quarter or once in a year. So I guess 3 times saving. So I believe everyone should avail this option. One interesting thing is you can still have your Accelerators on-prem, and you can have a non-cloud Accelerators on cloud. So that could be the secondary combination everyone should keep trying. And at one fine day, your cloud Accelerator will become the prod, and an on-prem becomes the DR. So that could be a strategy everyone should adopt and avail these savings going forward. Yeah, this is interesting for the application team, because whoever is part of the application, those who are managing application piece. So for the application users, for enterprise applications like Hyperion, EBS, PeopleSoft, you take up the same licenses. So there is no licensing change in the cloud. So you bring your own licenses for the application, which is most likely it is WebLogic, like WebLogic and SOA. So there is no change in the cost for the application. You bring your licenses, or you have an option to move from this traditional application to the modernized like a SaaS and PaaS. So, but during the cloud journey, you use the bring your own license component, and you just pay for a compute storage, and you started using the application. But there are 2 other baskets where like application monitoring. So you might be having n number of applications to manage your application piece, but in cloud, Oracle has an OEM or Oracle Enterprise Manager, which you can use the way you are using currently, and you can start transitioning to OMC, Oracle Management Cloud, which is a modernized and it built in AI and ML future. So that gives a little bit cost saving over 40% to the current monitoring system you have on-prem. And the last one is application and database and multiple load balances you have in your current on-premises. In cloud, everything becomes a service. So there is no upfront cost, like you don't need to upgrade your hardware license. I mean, hardware-based load balances are on-prem, so that becomes a service. So there is no capex here, and only apex and on-demand opex. So there will be a huge dollar saving there as well. So I just gave compared with our recent implementation that 46K OPEX per month to it becomes 25K per month. So you have a huge savings of 50 to 60% direct saving month to month. So this is specific to applications, since I have already covered the infrastructure and the database in the previous slides.
Samir, can you do the next poll question? I think this leads into just some additional data comparing cloud service providers.
Okay, everybody, you should have the polling question in front of you now.
I guess those are all in by now, Samir.
Mm-hmm. Here we go. Send the poll. Share the result.
Okay, so somewhat even on yes and no's. You know, more no's than yeses. Okay. So back to you, Javid.
Yeah. So this is a cost comparison between Oracle versus other cloud vendors. So Oracle stays competitive in major components like a compute and bare metal. But I think you should keep this slide and evaluate your cloud proposition going forward, considering why Oracle, why not other cloud. So yeah, Oracle 2 has a two cost estimator where you can just go to log into Oracle and start putting your numbers and get your numbers for the compute and all the services what Oracle offers on the cloud. And Oracle 2 has a workload estimator, which is interesting calculator, which I think the 4 criteria here, like in bandwidth, IO intensity, and general purpose. But I took the build your own. I just took the 15 terabytes and 20 terabytes for the storage and 15 OCPUs. So it just had I think you can see the numbers that Oracle is 98% competitive compared to AWS. So cumulatively annual equivalent, it becomes 21. So I think you should start go and put your numbers and get some visibility how Oracle works, and overall how that cost comes to. This is the final slide for the comparison. If you see, Oracle has a CLI and Amazon has a CLI, but Oracle has a cloud managers where Oracle has invested for all the enterprise customers like EBS, PeopleSoft, JD Edwards. So but in AWS does not have a product specific, but those are all specific to the, I think, provided by the partners. So AWS doesn't have a native product specific automation for Oracle stack. So that is the one key comparison. And the last one is, the best comparison is the cost. So you might end up paying a double core licensing fee if you consider moving your Oracle enterprise application loads to the EC2 instance, which is the most preferred compute service on Amazon. Yeah, back to Brent.
Thanks, Javid. We'll just jump back in. There was this same customer webcast in September. Oracle talked about what apps are you looking to move to the cloud. Obviously, it was all Oracle-centric, EBS and PeopleSoft and Siebel Hyperion. They also added a category in for custom apps. So we were curious, just since we've got a good collection of folks on the line, how that might apply to you. So we have the final poll question, if you could participate in that. Thanks, Samir.
Okay, everyone, you should have your poll questions in front of you now.
So this is kind of what we would expect. Majority of what we're seeing is folks want to move the ERP and HCM apps over. In the multiple apps, or if folks are looking to move completely out of their data center into the cloud, that would fit into that second to the last category. So appreciate everyone participating in these, and hopefully it's valuable for you to see what your peers are saying. A couple of final things before we start to wrap up. Your survey data, we talked about just project planning timeframes. From inception all the way through go live. What are you expecting that your overall project cycle to take? And over 70% of you responded that more than 18 months. And for moving enterprise applications, that's real from what we've seen also. But I would say that the testing cycles are something that most people plan enough time for, but there are some customers don't. So I think this is good peer feedback that you've got to do all your upfront planning and make sure you've got your project team established, and that you can line up your business segments to do testing, and the communication planning and change management are they're critical. I put a couple example project schedules in here. My team has done probably a dozen different Lucian banner transitions to OCI in the past. And a couple of them were, kind of the similar nature to what you're looking at here. It's definitely more than 9 months, and just how these customers would set up, doing the cloud side first, doing the application side next, and then doing, the other environments, and then the transition, the migration over, and then the go live, and post go live support. So that probably falls into maybe a quarter to half of those migrations that we did, that type of schedule. Another type of schedule around EBS move. If we're moving a couple different environments over, it could be between 4 and 9 months. And the factors that would impact that are around any kind of cutover schedule constraints. Sometimes you can only do cutover after the first of the year, or 2 months before the end of the year, or it might be based off of a fiscal year cycle. So there's schedule constraints that come into play. The number of modules obviously would have an impact on doing the customization, remediation, and refinement, and then how many environments, and can we do things in parallel at all, or does it all have to be in sequence based on resource availability? So just to wrap up, one of the things that we do offer is a free assessment or evaluation service. If you're looking at, why do we want to move, or we're considering moving, but we've got engineered systems, can you give us a cost benefit analysis, or can you show us, what we would need to do from a data migration standpoint, or what the options are? Our CEO is backing us on being able to provide this free service to you. And, it would be, 1 or 2 weeks, depending on, your availability and, ability to commit resources. And we do a readout at the end of that. Part of what we would ask is that, that there's no cost to you on, financially, but there is a cost on time. In order for these things to be effective, we've got to, have concentrated access to your folks in resource, and we'd ask for some preparation before we start, kind of in the way of kind of database ARR, AWR reports, and architecture diagrams and things like that. But these are we can provide outputs in different ways, from architecture and scoping to data migration plans to TCO evaluation. So we wanted to bring that up in case folks are interested, that we're able to jump on and help you with those things in kind of a short order. So just to kind of wrap up, and this will be where we can do interactive questions and Q&A, but the takeaways that you should have gotten is quite a bit of your peer feedback on the survey results. And the two things that Javid and I covered around cloud roadmap model and the TCO analysis template. And then, if you're so inclined, we'd be happy to talk to you about the Infolob cloud assessment and being able to tailor that to your needs. So, Samir, maybe you could kind of help us field questions and make sure we've covered everything.
Absolutely. So at this point in time, the webinar is over. For all attendees, wanted to say that we have the ability now to answer any questions that you might have had over the course of this demonstration. Now would be the time. So if you have anything on mind that you'd like to have answered, please feel free to enter that into the chat for the Q&A.
And Samir, I think we could open up or unmute everyone to make it easier. I think we're a couple minutes past, but we're certainly happy to spend a few more minutes here.
All right, so I'm unmuting everybody. Just bear with me.
And while we're wrapping up, the last thing here shows we've got a series of webinars we have planned over the next couple months. So the next one is around moving EBS to the cloud and the potential advantages to you of using autonomous database behind that. So that's scheduled for January 20th. I think we're looking at doing kind of adding one to the series that wasn't on the original 4-part. So we'll be doing an Apex webinar sometime in January. It'll be a joint session with Oracle Product Development and our database development team. So we'll certainly provide information to anyone on the line here about that as soon as it gets scheduled. So there were some questions that Javid and I answered in the Q&A along the way. Looks like Sandeep said we got his answered and he was jumping off to another call. So we really appreciate everyone joining. If you've got questions that you weren't able to get in and want to connect with us, Samir or James or I or Javid all are happy to correspond directly. So Samir, I think we're good if you want to wrap up.
All right. Well, once again, thank you to everybody for participating with us today. We hope we were able to show you some of the benefits of what it would look like moving your applications to Oracle Cloud and what that cost benefit would be as well. Like Brent said, we have a couple of things in the works where we'll be showcasing some other facets, but that'll be in January. And then, like Brent said, we also have another Apex one that we're going to fit in the middle. Just wanted to thank you again. I'm Samir Date, Cloud Sales Director with Infolob. I want to thank Brent Seaman for putting this on as our Cloud Practice Head, and for Javid as well as our Lead Architect. At this time, I want to say thank you, and I think that's a wrap.